That 5% edge that you think you're losing in age, it's not age, it's alcohol. And here's why. There's a recent study that looked at people who've been drinking for 35 years or more. Here's what they found in simple terms. There's something called a CB1 reward gene in your brain. It's the one that says, this feels good, I'm going to do it again. And in those brains, they were 125% more active in the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that I call the CEO. It controls good decisions, helps you manage your impulses, and helps you plan ahead. The protective genes are the ones that help you actually say, no, I'm not going to drink this time, dropped by 50%. That 5% edge is not about your age. Alcohol is slowly making you dumber. It's hard to hear, but this is why real leaders don't drink. Chances are that every single person that you admire, you know, the ones who seem to have that unfair advantage, they're smarter than you, they're clearer, they get stuff done, they make better decisions, they're faster at reading a room, they're better at their impulse control when it matters most. These are the people that don't drink. And here's the thing, you can't afford to be even 5% off. Not in a meeting where your promotion is at stake, not in the conversations with your teenagers where one wrong response can mean that communication is cut off for weeks. And certainly not in that moment when everything hinges on you being sharp, present, decisive. But here's what it looks like in real life, because it's subtle and it creeps up on you over time. It happens in increments, so you barely notice that it's going on. You might be a little more reactive in your relationships with your partner. You might take a little bit longer to make a decision that you used to be able to make like that. And you might feel that craving at 5 p.m. becoming harder and harder to resist than it was a few years ago. The study found that these gene changes were the strongest in two key areas. As I've mentioned, the prefrontal cortex, which is your decision center in your brain, and also in the nuclear accumbens, which is your habit hub. 78% more activity was seen in the habit hub alone. What this means and why this is important is because your brain has learned deeply, structurally, that 6 p.m. equates to a drink. And it's gotten very, very efficient at reminding you. And it's not because you're a bad person or you're weak, but because repetition plus reward over decades creates deeply ingrained autopilot responses, also known as habits. And many people feel a bit resigned. They think, I've been drinking like this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. What difference would it make for me to even just try? And that makes total sense. When something has been in your life for longer than perhaps most of your relationships, the idea of change feels somewhat naive and maybe like you're just kidding yourself. But this video is also about the good news. And here's what the research actually says about the fact that we can change. You're not doomed is the good news. Your brain is not permanently damaged. It's simply adapted over time and built a really efficient association between specific times like the evening and the desire to drink. But what has adapted one way can adapt another way. This principle is called neuroplasticity. Basically, it means your brain can change at any age and at any stage. For many, this process starts showing up in as little as 2 weeks. Of course, that's not complete rewiring and not everything is totally fixed, but measurable changes start to happen. Those CB1 genes, the ones that tell us, do it, do it, do it, start calming down, and the protective genes start coming back online. So your prefrontal cortex, the CEO in your brain, starts to reclaim its authority. And depending on your history, a total reset, a total recovery of your brain can happen between 1 to 6 months. So the question isn't, can I change after all this time? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. The main question is, are you ready to get curious about that 5 to 10% that you're missing out on and rediscover what it feels like to have vitality? So here are the key points from this video. Decades of drinking ramp up your reward genes by 78 to 125%. These are measurable structural changes in your decision-making center. Your protective brain defenses, which make it harder for you to say no to a drink, drop by 50%. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that most likely got you where you are today, changes the most. This isn't a weakness or a personality flaw, it's neuroscience. And the good news is, in 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, you can start to see change. Healing starts in just 2 weeks because your brain really wants to come back into balance. You also don't need to totally overhaul your life. You just need to start. You can begin by something really small, like subscribing to this channel. You can download a free guide and get more educated, because when we start to see and understand things for exactly as they are, we're much more likely to take intelligent action. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.